Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our service. I'd just like to thank Nick for our opening music this morning, which was beautiful. Thank you very much for suggesting that lovely music, Nick. You are welcome, whoever you are and however you're feeling this morning, whether you come in sadness or in joy today, or anywhere in between, for that matter. Whether you're new here, I know there's one or two people here for the first time, you're very welcome. Whether you've been coming here for decades, some of you fall into that category, you're all welcome. This morning is the first Sunday in Advent. It comes round quickly. French philosopher Simone Weil said, "Waiting patiently in expectation is the foundation of the spiritual life." And Advent is definitely a time of waiting and preparing. So let's begin our worship, this time of celebration, contemplation and community, by lighting our chalice candle. If you're at home, then please do light a candle with me now. May our flames be symbols of the quiet, still spaces in our minds. That place that waits patiently with expectation of whatever may come. May it be so. This season is a season perhaps of miracles, and the miracle this morning is that we are not only here in the church but also with people online, because we had what Gav called a tech complex. No, I can't say that. Something like that. Anyway, but Myron has rescued us. So we're delighted to be able to connect both in person and online. So we're going to sing, with any luck, our first hymn this morning, which is an Advent hymn. It is number 82 in the green hymn books, but of course the words will come up on the screen. And it's People Look East. Now, we didn't have our own recording of this. There wasn't a Unitarian recording of this. So I found a recording online. I think it's actually some children singing, so it's quite nice, quite Christmassy. And they do give you a whole verse of intro. So just to let you know, that just to sit and listen to that, and then stand as you're able to sing. So it's People Look East.
People look
Now let us come together in a time of prayer. And I'd like to begin by sharing a prayer, an Advent prayer from the Catholic priest and author Henri Nouwen. O God, renew our souls so that we may find what is good and acceptable and perfect in your eyes. Open our eyes to see beyond the lures of the world, the prizes of success, the rewards of wealth and position, the seductions of a modern life lived out at a frenetic and competitive pace. Help us to sever our dependencies on the world's distractions and give us an opportunity to find ourselves in the shelter and safety of your wings. Amen. Divine Spirit, we know that this is the season of anticipation, of expecting, of hoping, of wanting. This is the time of living in darkness, in the hues of unknowing, of being quiet, of reflecting on a year almost past, waiting for a new beginning, for a closing, or an end. This is the time for digesting the lessons of days gone past, anticipating the future. This is a time of waiting for peace, for bridges to span the divides that separate us, for a promise or a hope. Divine Spirit, we are waiting. Amen. Our story this morning comes from the Sufi tradition. It's a well-known story. The version I know best features Nasruddin. This is a slightly different version, and it comes from Osho's book, Joy, the happiness that comes from within. I hope you enjoy the story. The mystic Rabia was searching for something on the street outside her small hut. The sun was setting and darkness was descending as a few people gathered around her. What have you lost? What are you searching for? Perhaps we can help, they said to Rabia. Rabia said, I've lost my needle. And one of the people said, well, the sun is setting now, and it will be very difficult to find a needle. Where did it fall? If we know the exact place, it will be much easier to find it. And Rabia said to them, it's better not to ask me that question, because actually it has not fallen on the road at all. It fell inside my house. Everyone started giggling, as if she was joking, and one man said, if the needle has fallen inside the house, why are you searching for it on the road? And she replied, for a very simple reason. Inside the house, there's no light, and on the outside, a little light is still there. And the people laughed, as have you, and they started dispersing. But Rabia called them back, and she said, listen, That's exactly what you are doing. I was just following your example. You go on seeking bliss in the outside world without asking the most fundamental question, where exactly have I lost it? After a pause, she continued, you have lost it inside, and yet you are looking for it on the outside for the very same reason. Your senses are outward bound. Your ears hear sounds on the outside. Your hands touch things on the outside. That's the reason why you're searching outside. For a very long time, I was also just searching on the outside. But the day I searched inwards, I was surprised. That is where I lost it. And that is the only place it can be found. And some words from Henri Nouwen again, who has written a lot about waiting. So I just wanted to share some of those thoughts. The secret of waiting is to trust that a seed has been planted, that something has begun. Active waiting means to be fully present to the moment, in the conviction that something is happening. A waiting person is a patient person, and the word patience means the willingness to stay where we are and live the situation out to the full, in the belief that something hidden there will manifest itself to us. Impatient people are always expecting the real thing to happen somewhere else, and therefore want to go elsewhere. The moment is empty. But patient people dare to stay where they are, living actively in the present and waiting there. Waiting is open-ended. Open-ended waiting is hard for us because we tend to wait for something concrete, something we wish to have. I wish that the weather would be better. I wish that the pain would go. And for this reason, a lot of our waiting is not open-ended. Instead, it's a way of trying to control the future. To wait open-endedly is an enormously radical attitude toward life. To trust that something will happen that is far beyond our own imaginings. The spiritual life is a life in which we wait, actively present to the moment, trusting that new things that are far beyond our own imagination, fantasy, or prediction may happen. Words from Henri Nouwen. So I invite you now to enter into a quiet place, that quiet place in your mind, if you can find that place today. I know it's sometimes more difficult than others. We only do our best to just let go into that quiet space. And we will have some silence, but to lead us in there, I invite you to join in singing, and you may like to remain seated for this. It's the hymn number 35, Find a Stillness. It's in our purple books, those of you using hymn books. Number 35, Find a Stillness. Now, Advent in the Christian tradition is about waiting to celebrate the birth of Jesus, of God's incarnation into the world. It's also, in the case of an anticipated second coming, waiting without knowing when that may occur, but preparing and being ready anyway. Advent originally began around the 4th or the 5th century as a period of fasting, similar to the period of Lent before Easter. And it still retains something of that spirit of atonement in some cultures. For example, both the Eastern Orthodox and the Eastern Catholic churches continue to observe an Advent fast. In the pagan tradition, this time of year is also about waiting. In this case, waiting for the return of the sun, S-U-N. Even as we descend into the darkest time of the year, we're already anticipating the moment when the earth once more turns again towards the light and the days begin almost imperceptibly at first, to get longer again. So this season at its heart is about waiting in the darkness and preparing for the light to come, both literally and symbolically. It is a time, if we choose, for spiritual contemplation. It is an invitation, if we wish to accept, to empty ourselves in order to prepare for any transformation that may come. It is a time that asks us to have faith. And this waiting feels very different, to me anyway, from much of our day-to-day experience of waiting, which is often characterized by a sense of frustration and powerlessness. Waiting for a bus that doesn't come. Waiting for a hospital appointment or a procedure that gets cancelled. Waiting for a house sale to go through. Hanging on the end of a phone, waiting for some automatic voice to help you. And so on. And I know I struggle with that kind of waiting. It makes me feel helpless and that I don't matter and that no one really cares, and I'm stuck in a kind of broken system that I can't do much to change, and that can be hard to bear. Makes me feel a bit anxious now just thinking about it. But Advent does offer the chance to embrace another kind of waiting too. One that feels very different and in which we may relax and breathe a little more easily. It's a sort of waiting that is not dependent on anyone else or any system or any outcome. It is a waiting that exists simply as a connection, as a gossamer thread, if you like, that shimmers between me and my God, and between you and yours. It is an open-ended waiting. That is not about having our wishes fulfilled as quickly as possible, lovely though that might be, but is instead alive with possibility. It asks us not to look without, but to look within, to practice trusting and having faith in the process of life itself. To believe in the possibility of things emerging along the way that we'd had never even dreamt of. And in the promise that hope and light will eventually return, one way or another, even if we never saw that way or another coming. In this kind of waiting, there is no rush. And there's nowhere to go except to dwell in the sacred relationship itself. The waiting is the living, right here and right now. Margaret Kirk, former minister in York, Unitarians, I think, reminds us that the word wait has a number of different roots. One of these is the old French word, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this correctly, but wetier, something like that, which means to watch as well as to wait. And another is from the Old High German, again, forgiveness for pronunciations requested. Vata, meaning watcher, and Vahon, meaning to be awake. So quite deeply embedded in the meaning of our English word, wait, is the suggestion that however powerless we might feel, however frustrated, waiting and watching carries within it the possibility of awakening, if we allow it. Now, I know I can't tap into this calm, open-ended space all of the time, or even much of the time, if I'm honest. And I'm sure, well, I think I'm probably sure that you can't either. I think we all get irritable and disappointed and miserable when things don't work out the way we'd hoped. It's only natural. And as Anne spoke of last week, we're not perfect. And that's okay. We're human. But this returning to that quiet space is something we can practice and return to again and keep reminding ourselves of that there is another way to wait. And that is the foundation, as Simone Weil said, of spiritual life. And it can make all the difference between hope and despair. The Unitarian Universalist Frank Casper writes, waiting is a kind of attitude, a way of living within a spiritual orientation that has confidence in what is unfolding. Saying, I don't really know what all this means, but I trust in the nature and character of what is happening. In terms of the spirit of Advent, he says, a patient person is one who doesn't rush from one moment to the next, robbing each moment of significance, but is instead attentive to the present and in relative possession of themselves. That kind of confidence can bring a kind of calm, a spiritual rest in the midst of festive madness. So as we enter Advent once again, let us remember the origins of the season. May we find time to access that calm space in ourselves. Yes, there'll be shopping. Yes, there'll be eating and drinking and great merriment, and why not enjoy it if you can? But in the midst of that, can we find that space to reconnect, to find that gossamer thread of connection between ourselves and our God, to wait with open-ended anticipation for all that may unfold. May it be so. Our final hymn, I think, it's not particularly a Christmassy one, except that it's very much about creativity, and I think this season is also about that. It's also about music, it's about poetry, it's about imagery and story, and this hymn for me speaks of all of those things. And it's play, trumpet, cello, harp and flute, and it's number 133 in the purple hymn books if you're using a hymn book, 133. Do stand this time. Today's service is deliberately a little shorter than usual because we have a meeting afterwards and lunch to share too. So it's not just that I ran out. Well, I'd like to close with some words that are adapted from 1 Thessalonians. And then our closing video is again a well-known Advent carol, hymn, I suppose, but this is an instrumental version of O Come, Emmanuel, which I hope you'll enjoy. So our closing words. Be at peace among yourselves. Encourage the faint-hearted. Help the weak. Be patient with everyone. See that none of you repays harm with harm, but always seek to do good to one another and to all. Rejoice always. Be at one with your God. Give thanks as far as you can. I've added that bit. In all circumstances. This is all that is asked of you. Go well.